FM, AM 1160. Thank you to our very alert listener calling to let us know and let you know that the traffic lights along Wayne Avenue, basically from the Maple Street at the IUP campus all the way to the Homer City Sheets, are having some difficulties this morning. And so you might come across a light that is out. No telling when those things get restored. Sometimes it's just an instant and they're back on. So be aware that you may run into traffic light situations. If there is a light that is out completely, you must treat that by law as a four-way stop sign. Don't go blowing through that. You're going to cause an accident and you might be in it. Okay? So do be very, very careful if the lights are out. And again, we're getting the report from basically Wayne Avenue at Maple Street. That's right at the entrance to the IUP campus, all the way to the Homer City Sheets. All right. It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. Gosh, it's hard to get Bob Manzi on the line here this morning. We've got so many things going on. He is the Indiana County District Attorney joining us this morning in our conversation brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful, and it's good to have you with us here today. Lots of things going on are in the legal community. We were talking earlier about the fact that the courts are finally going to be able to start moving again and get churning. There's a big caseload at the Indiana County Courthouse right now, isn't there?
You know, there's a big caseload at our courthouse. There's a big caseload at every courthouse across the state, across the country. I'm in regular communications with district attorney's office across the state. Each and every one of them has a backlog because of COVID. Our courts have been very diligent, working very hard to do everything they can. Basically, the only thing we haven't been able to do for a while is jury trials, with the safety concerns of bringing a large number of people in for that. Last week, we began jury trials again. We have the juries being selected at the KCAC, so we're able to spread out. We're able to bring a number of cases. We have jury trials scheduled for several months out. There's a lot of people in our community getting jury summons, so we're able to move forward with that. There's going to be a backlog for a while. When I talk with DAs from other counties, I feel very comfortable with where we're at when we look at their numbers. I think our courts have worked very hard to get through everything they can. So while we do have a backload, I think it's manageable and we're going to get through it.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not something that you can rush. You have to make sure that everything is done appropriately and correctly, because rushing just means you're going to be back there handling what got mismanaged earlier. So you got to do it right.
Absolutely. You have to make sure that procedurally everything's done correct, that the defendant's rights are protected, that the victim's rights are protected, and we handle the cases correctly.
Yeah, so that's what's happening at the courthouse. Meanwhile, in order to get to the courthouse and take a case there, the cases have to begin somewhere. A lot of times it's with investigations. A lot of times it's investigations nobody has anything knows about that they're even going on, and that has been the case recently. The Drug Task Force has been very active here in Indiana County recently.
Our Drug Task Force is very active, and your caller in today about the traffic lights is a great segue into the task force, because many cases that come from our task force, we get information from individuals around the county. They'll see a house in their community in which events are happening that just make no sense. There's a lot of traffic. Cars will pull up, someone runs in, someone runs out. The people in there, they know they're not working. A lot of license plates from out of town, out of the state. So we have individuals that call in and say to our task force, hey, you may want to take a look at that. We're able to begin an investigation and, if appropriate, execute a search warrant and conduct an arrest. So having the members of our community providing us that information, and they can do so anonymously, they can do so, and we conduct the investigation, so they'll never need to testify. It's just a great way to protect our community. And that's really what it is. It's our community. Law enforcement does a great deal of work, but we need that information from the community to be able to do what we're doing.
And that starting point of any investigation is extremely important, and you mentioned that word safety. It is really important for people, if they have a suspicion, not to try to take things into their own hands, but contact you, contact their state police, and just let you do the work there.
Absolutely, and we don't want anybody being cavalier and addressing the drug dealers on their own. That's why we have the task force. That's why we have law enforcement. Once we get that information, we have done a number of investigatory tasks. I really don't want to share what we're doing, but we're able to gather the necessary evidence we need. And we've had incidents where we get a tip on a Tuesday, we have an arrest on a Thursday. So we're able to, and sometimes they'll take longer, but we're able to get that investigation done correctly so that we have sufficient evidence to prove a defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt at trial.
There is the concept that criminals are extremely dumb. That's not always the case. There are some criminals who have very sophisticated operations. There are some who are crude. Whatever it is that they're doing, it's done awkwardly and I would assume much easier to sniff out. But bottom line is, you have to have a level of confidence that what you're doing is going to be an effective approach for a given crime. So it takes a lot of background information, does it not?
It does. Before we even, once we have a target, we do a lot of background investigation. We'll do a lot of intelligence work throughout the law enforcement community to find out what law enforcement knows about our target. Um, you know, while we certainly want to make sure we effect a good arrest and a good prosecution, the safety of our officers, the safety is of everybody involved, including the defendant, is paramount. We want to make sure that if we're doing a search warrant, we don't want things to go sideways and anybody to get hurt. So, that is of the utmost importance. So we take those steps very seriously in order to get to the final product of an arrest and a conviction.
I want to ask about, just as an example, as an illustration, a recent case in Blacklick that broke just in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you know the case I'm referring to, but a very large amount of drugs found, and Drug Task Force very much involved in that whole investigation.
Absolutely. And that is a case that just demonstrates the teamwork we have going on in our task force. We had members of several different police departments, of our sheriff's departments, of our state police, who are sharing information together, and we're able to put the pieces together in order to effect, a case that has probably one of the largest amounts of heroin and fentanyl being seized from our task force in the task force history.
Yeah, and people in those communities, probably there's a great amount of them that know something might be off at a place or with some person, but they really aren't aware of how dangerous the situation is, that the drugs are there, that the operation is going on, that there are weapons involved and large amounts of cash, and generally, there's going to be a young person who gets trapped in this sort of thing as well, through no fault of their own, an innocent youngster who is involved, and so that's why this is so important.
It's incredibly important. Not only is it for the safety of where that community is. The shooting we had in Indiana Borough February of last year, the shooting we had at Carriage House was all drug related. And it doesn't take much for an innocent bystander to be shot. When we're able to seize large amounts of drugs like that, what we're able to do is we're able to stop those drugs from going into the community. That Blacklick case stopped 2,500 stamp bags of heroin going into our community. Who knows how many lives were saved just because somebody does an overdose on one of those bags? Who knows how many kids didn't start an addiction because it wasn't available? And that's why I always tell members of the community, we're not asking you to be law enforcement. Even if you think something's going on, give us a call. Yeah. Sometimes there may not be, and that's, we'll investigate it and we'll look at it. But I'd hate for somebody to say, I think something was going on, I thought something was going on, I should have called. Give us a call and we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, it's sometimes interesting to me, or always interesting to me, how something might appear to be as a result of a random traffic stop, that drugs are discovered. A lot of times that's not a random traffic stop at all.
You'll have times where, there's a great deal of investigation going on and, that person's been a target of an investigation. They just so happen to be stopped because they're driving on a suspended license, and it kind of accelerates where that investigation is going to be.
Yeah. National Police Week, extremely important, especially in this day and age, in the environment in which we live today. It's not easy being a police officer, and so they are worthy not only of honor, but our salute, especially during this week.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, and without doubt. So next week is National Police Week, and we have a National Peace Officers Memorials happening next week also. Our law enforcement, especially in our county, I cannot, and I always say this, I cannot say how much of a great job the men and women of our law enforcement are doing. They'll have days where they go from effecting a traffic stop at 2 a.m, approaching a car with an individual, they don't know who's in there or what's going to happen. They could be thinking the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 hours later, they're rushing an infant to the hospital that overdosed on an opioid. And then 2 hours later, they're having to work a scene with a suicide or another overdose, or break up a domestic in which they've broken up a domestic at that house 5 different times. That's their day at work. That's every day.
Yeah.
And then they go home, and then they read people who have no idea what they're doing on social media, just beating them up for things that they just simply don't know the full story. The law enforcement in our community deserve our praise for what they do. And next week is National Police Week, and I'm hopeful that our community really demonstrates the appreciation we have for our law enforcement.
They do such a fabulous job. We think locally of our state police, of our Indiana Borough Police, but the police officers in our smaller communities have, in many cases, they're part-time officers who are working as part-time officers in several communities at once. Mm-hmm. The job that they are tasked with is extremely difficult, and it is open to criticism. People are more than willing to jump on them and to criticize people who are working really, really hard at a job that has to be a passion in order for them to even do it.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to suggest that people shouldn't think critically about law enforcement and law enforcement issues. But what I want to challenge, and I really want to challenge especially people in leadership positions in our community, that you take the time to sit down with our police chiefs, sit down with our state police, our sheriffs, and bring those concerns to them. Ask them about this issue or that issue. How are you addressing this? Unfortunately, we have some people who they like to jump on social media and they like to just throw out comments because it's easy. Mm-hmm. But really being able to sit across the table from Chief Shaw or Sheriff Fyock or the state police or any of our police chiefs and say, I have this concern. Can you talk me through it? Can you tell me what your department's doing to address this issue? And having that critical conversation, I firmly believe that those individuals will learn more about what our local law enforcement is doing than they ever thought is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else we need to know about things coming up on your schedule, events that you have planned?
I do want to highlight an event. It's a fun event on June 4th. It's the first Friday of June at our Little League fields down on Gabriel Avenue. We're going to be hosting an inaugural home run derby for all the children of Indiana County, ages 11, 12, and 13.
Oh, cool.
We're hosting it alongside Indiana Little League. We're going to start the event this year. We're hoping to grow it. I've been in talks with DAs from other counties. I hope to grow it into a challenge between counties, just another positive event in our community. So, young men and women, and especially in the middle school age, have something fun they can do that gives them the pro-social skills and positive events to look forward to.
Swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
We like it. District Attorney Bob Manzi, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much. You have a great day.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.